6 needed, and that could be the winning hit. It is. It's 6 for Lewis Gregory, and Somerset have won by 6 wickets. Tremendous win for Somerset, chasing down 194 to win, with Will Smead leading the way.
Hello there, this is Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, the Somerset Cricket Podcast. My name's Ian Shepherd. Joining me this evening to reflect on Somerset Men's first loss of the season, I've got President of the club, Sir Peter Wanless. Peter, how did you enjoy that game against Yorkshire? Were you hosting a delegation of parsimonious Yorkshiremen down there moaning at the price of everything? Or was it slightly better fun for you?
Do you know what? It was a fantastic game of county cricket, highly competitive. Went deep into the 4th day. Our visitors were incredibly nice, generous, spirited people. Not just because they ended up winning the game, which was very frustrating, but there was lots to really enjoy about the experience, and to have Joe Root especially down playing at Taunton was something special, and the crowds were good, much better than we had for the first game. So yeah, I really enjoyed myself, apart from the result in the end.
Good. And Gibbo, enjoyable day off Sunday, was it? But apart from that, it was pretty, it started well, didn't it? It started all right. We just gave it away, didn't we?
Yeah, it's a game we should have won. We were in the winning. Well, we were in a position where we shouldn't have been beaten twice, and the first time was when we were 271 for 7. And then lost our last 3 wickets for 3 runs. And the other time was when Wharton was out in the Yorkshire second innings, when they were, I think, 226 for 6, and they went on and got another 150 nearly, for their last 4 wickets. I think their last 3 wickets, as opposed to our last 3 wickets adding 3, their last 3 wickets added over 90, and that was the difference. And it was disappointing, and I thought in the end, in the final analysis, it was Yorkshire experience getting the better of Somerset promise. I mean, it's a pretty callow batting lineup at the moment. Yeah. You take out Tom Abell, and the top 7 have got very, very little first-class experience between them. All right, James Root has played 50-odd games of first-class cricket. And Tom Lammonby, but Lammonby's not in any sort of form. And you look at Josh Thomas and Archie Vaughan and Will Smead and Thomas Rue. I mean, they've only got a dozen first-class games, if that, between them. And I think that showed, particularly in the second innings, against some very experienced and very good Yorkshire bowling, to be fair. George Hill and Jack White, but very tight up top, forced them into making mistakes. And then on a pitch that was giving a certain amount of assistance, not much to the spinners, Dom Bess and Joe Root polished them off. And, there it was. But it was a game we should have won, and a game we shouldn't have lost.
I think we missed Jack Leach massively on that third afternoon.
Yeah.
Not just with the control, but as a wicket-taking option as well. I mean, I hope to God he's back for Cardiff in a few days' time. But we just saw what we've been really wanting Taunton Surfaces to do for the last few years, which is give a bit of assistance to the spinners on the last day. I mean, how many overs a seam did we see on Monday? About half a dozen, if that? It was pretty much Root and Bess all day.
Well, I think Gibbo's right that Hill and White bowled extremely well up top, really tight. I mean, in that 4th innings, there wasn't a single extra. And people talk about bowling dry, and that inability for us to get a run pretty much from anywhere for the first 15 overs or so was a bit of a killer. And the same thing happened at the start of the second day, where they bowled really tight and we couldn't get going. And having had that brilliant first day. Uh, just as we did at Hampshire, we just couldn't get going again on the second day. And
Hmm.
so for me, both the beginning of the inning, the beginning of the second day when we were 3 wickets down but couldn't get going again, and the beginning of the innings of the fourth day. Yes, in the end they spun us to victory, but all those two Yorkshire opening bowlers in the fourth innings, I think, did a really great job, as well as the spinners. And I suppose taking the longer view, it was lovely to see a pitch that was spinning on the fourth day rather than turning into the usual road, except we ended up then getting done by
Getting
our
bowled
own
out.
game, didn't we? And people are talking about the Yorkshire spin twins. We're the people who are supposed to have the spin twins. We're the people who asked
Yeah.
for, can't we have a wicket like this, which will give us a result on the fourth day, that gives the bowlers a chance. And this one seemed to do just that, but we hadn't got enough runs in the first innings, and so we left ourselves too much to do at the end. So disappointing, but yeah, a great game of cricket.
Yeah, I mean, what was the overall margin of victory? 75 runs. Yeah, you felt we were good enough for at least another 40 runs in our first innings, and we let Yorkshire get at least 42 many. And your point about the extras is a great one as well. We just couldn't get going in that run chase. And I think that the way that Yorkshire were going to win that game was to drag it out as long as possible. I remember Michael Vaughan talking about Edgbaston 05. He said it wasn't about taking wickets. We just drag the game out as long as possible. We stay in the game. We give ourselves a chance. And I think that's what they did. I mean, you mentioned Gibbo about the sort of the lack of experience in the batting lineup. I thought, I've had my doubts about TKC being a long-term opener, but I thought that's what we needed at the top of the order in that run chase to get going. Somebody just to put a bit of fear in the Yorkshire bowlers, knowing that if they miss, they're going to get punished. I know Josh Thomas is a good player and Archie Vaughan's a good player, but that you felt they were just going to think they were very much of the we'll if we bat all day, we'll win the game. And it didn't quite work out like that. What was the score when Rue was adjudged caught behind? It was 21 for 3, and that was in the 16th over. So the
Yeah.
two openers didn't really get going. Lammers looks in no sort of nick. You felt he'd been out nicking off the balls that perhaps he could have thought he could have left, and this time he was out leaving a ball that he should have played. Jason mentioned post-match he was carrying a bit of a niggle, Gibbo. I
Yeah, he
presume
did. Yeah,
that's to do with all
I don't know
the.
what it. I didn't. He didn't specify what it was, but
Yeah, I
but
asked around. I couldn't get anything, but I assume it's to do with all the strapping and the sleeve that he's had on that right elbow of his. So um, perhaps that's contributing to Lambs' lack of form. But at the moment, looking ahead to Cardiff, he'll probably keep his place. You would have thought.
there's nobody
Given
else
that
to come in, is there?
nobody else to come in. Yeah, I mean, I don't
Well,
want
it's
to
been
say
Hill.
it in a disrespectful manner, but you maybe thought this, if in other times you may have thought it'd just go into the seconds and maybe just get your timing back, get it all moving around again. We were sat here 6 weeks ago thinking that our bowling resources were going to be understaffed, and here we are looking now with Banton, Tom Calder-Cadmore, and Lewis Goldsworthy all sat on the proverbial physio's couch. What was I talking about when I started rambling? Yes, the start to the innings, and it took when Tom Abell came in, who's obviously in supreme form, and started rotating the scoreboard, just finding the gaps, looking to score off every ball. I thought that was
He's been asked to do too much at the moment.
Yeah, and
There's too much on his shoulders.
I was thinking back to all the run chases where he's got runs. Obviously, Warwickshire last year, Hampshire a couple of weeks ago. I think he got a few where we chased up at Durham a couple of years ago as well. And I was dying just to kind of. I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to tempt fate, but just have a quick look on my laptop at Tom Abell's record in run chases in Championship cricket over the last few years, because I suspect he's pretty good with a pretty good average. But yeah, once he went to his best man, for Dom Bess's. Dom Bess is getting married in. I think it's not to the autumn, but Tom Abell's going to be his best man. So I would have potentially said for every you get me out, there's going to be about 5 or 6 more embarrassing stories going into that speech, but maybe not. It was. I mean, Josh. I mean, should we look at the positives? I mean, Lewis Gregory's been an absolute revelation with the ball since he's come back in since that injury. He looks about 10 years younger. The way that he's running in, there doesn't seem to be any concerns about sort of workload or anything that I can see. The end of last season, he seemed to be very much managing his workload. Now he's just opening the bowling, coming in, bowling with decent pace, and showing what a quality player he is. And I almost feel he kind of feels like a new signing the way that he's come back. Gibber. I mean, I don't know what
I agree. I think he's bowling as well as he has done since 2019. He was brilliant when we nearly won the county championship, and he took a stack of wickets then. And he's not quite as quick as he was, but he's probably more skillful, and he can move it both ways. I thought on the first day he bowled absolutely brilliantly. To get Joe Root out when Root looked in absolutely no trouble at all. It was a very, very good ball that he brought back in and took the inside edge and onto the stumps. I thought I just wish he'd come and consent to be interviewed at the close of play after he's bowled so well. He wouldn't do it at Southampton, and he wouldn't do it on Friday. But that's a minor quibble. It's good to see him in such great form with the ball. Not such great form, I think it'd be fair to say, with the bat. Not very keen on this new stance that he's this sort of open stance that he's developed. I don't think it's a terribly good idea for Craig Overton to come in ahead of Lewis Gregory either. I think somebody on Twitter asked that, and
he did, yeah.
So I think fundamentally Lewis is the better bat, and I think there's a good case actually for Lewis to open the batting, as he did at the same stage in last season when we played Sussex at home, and he and Josh Davey opened the batting, and all right, it was a bit of a shock at the time, but it worked. And we won the game.
Yeah,
and I think a bit of experience up the top would do no harm at all.
Yeah, I mean, and I would probably echo that, and I think Peter, with Jack Leach being injured, you're asking a lot of 20-year-old Archie Vaughan to be the number one spinner and open the batting. How many overs did he bowl in that match? We didn't bowl first innings. I think he bowled quite a few second innings.
18
overs. So it is a lot for a young guy who's still learning his trade. And where I'm getting not worried, I don't think, but I'm not quite seeing a path for him yet, because you kind of think, well, he could go back down to 6 at any time. You don't feel like it's set in stone that he's going to open the batting long term.
Well,
you feel like he could move down to 6 and be a bowling all-rounder. Again, I don't see it being sustainable, him opening the batting and bowling this many overs if the pitches are turning or if Jack Leach isn't available.
Except that he looked really solid in both innings at Southampton, and then just hook one down long leg's throat, both innings. That does show a deficiency, weakness that's got to be addressed. But it's the collective number of people that we've got with a lack of experience, I suppose. Anyway, I mean, I look at that batting order and I think it's incredibly exciting and talented batting lineup right the way. 1 to 11, they can all bat when they put their mind to it.
Well, that's
and then we might this time last week we'd have had this conversation about Josh Thomas, is he quite there yet? He's had a few runs in the first game and now he hasn't quite come good, and then he's had this extraordinary match, and his Roy Kerslake said that was one of the best innings he'd seen by someone, scoring a century at Taunton, and there were some fabulous shots. It was difficult for him to get going, but once he did, what authority to score the best part of 200 runs and end up on the losing side. You got to feel for him a bit. So
I mean, 136 out of 274 is pretty good going, but his strike rate as well was nearly double everybody else's. It was, to coin that phrase, looked like he was batting on a different pitch. It was quite remarkable to watch for a lad on his, scoring in his nascent career, opening the batting in county championship cricket. I like that he plays the ball late. He's a bit like James Rew. He's got the Trescothic dab as well, isn't it? We had the shoot and chop of Pete Denning through the cover, through square, and he's got the sort of just angles the bat and he just lets it go through third man, playing it really late and under his eyes.
Yeah.
And when he's batting with James Rew, it can be a little bit difficult to tell the two apart because they do bat very similar.
So I don't know if this came up on the commentary, but sorry, I was going to say I don't know if this came up on the commentary, but I asked the question on Friday morning to our Yorkshire visitors as to whether Joe Root had ever played at Taunton before, and it turned out that he played once in 2011 when he opened the batting, and so we dug out the wisdom and looked at the scorecard, and in that game Somerset had a left-hander with a great strike rate who hit the ball very hard opening the batting, one Marcus Trescothick, and he scored 100 in both innings. And I'd kind of been hoping that Josh Thomas was going to replicate Marcus Trescothick's performance and give us another 10-wicket win, which was what happened last time Joe Root was down here in 2011, and it wasn't to be. But he top scored in both innings, so fair play to him. It's just he didn't get a great deal of support from anyone else.
Yeah, he's a very gutsy batsman. And I liked his approach as well. I asked him when I interviewed him and closed the play on Friday, how did you feel when Somerset were 35 for 3 and in all sorts of trouble? He said, well, I didn't really feel anything very much. I was just concentrating on the next ball. And that was the way he approached it. If it was a good ball, he defended it. If there was a chance to score, he took it, and took it very handsomely. And I think comparisons with Trescothick, we're probably getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. But he's got a good technique and he's got a good temperament.
Yeah.
And he's earned himself, a long shot, a long spell opening the innings. But preferably opening the innings with someone a bit more experienced than Archie Vaughan.
Yeah.
Although Archie Vaughan, I keep saying this, when I interviewed him at Old Trafford end of the season before last, and asked him about opening innings, and he said, "I want to open the innings. That's my job. That's what I want to do in cricket." And as far as I know, that's still very much the case. But I think there's a good case now for him to drop down the order and get a bit of confidence back, because he looked a little bit all at sea, particularly in the second innings.
I think it's great that he does want to open the innings, but when it comes to a situation like we got where Jack Leach is unavailable, he then becomes the number one spinner. He's got to bowl all this overs, and he's a young guy. It's asking a lot of him, and I think maybe it would be easier for him to do that from sort of 6 or 7, and as we said before, have Gregory open the batting. Probably easier for Gregory to bowl his overs. Oh, what was it? Oh no, I'm still here. So yeah, what else? I mean, what else do we need to
Did you
talk
think
about
when Thomas Rew was put into the team that James Rew was going to open?
Well, it was a possibility, wasn't it?
I didn't think they would, because it was only ever going to be for sort of one game maybe, while he's very much in the middle of his exams, and I think with it being a bank holiday, weekend. They kind of took the opportunity with the batting lineup being a little bit depleted, and obviously Jack being kind of irreplaceable with a like for like, so they could have brought in Jake Ball or Josh Shaw for Jack Leach, and that would have left the side not as balanced as it should have been. So they just thought they'll bring in Thomas through. Archie Vaughan can bowl the overs a spin. Second ball duck in the first innings, but I thought he looked very composed once he got himself settled. Second time around, played a couple of lovely shots, a few lovely reverse sweeps off Joe Root. There was a beautiful cover drive that he hit off Root as well. I thought there was a lot to be excited about. I mean, we know how good he is, how good his brother is, how nothing seems to faze these guys. You can chuck them in whatever situation you like, and they seem to perform. Just a shame for him that he couldn't go on and get a 50 and 100 and see the team home. Would have been a very, very special debut if he had.
Mm.
Yeah, he batted very nicely. And again, he's a bit like his older brother. He's got an old head on young shoulders. He looked very much. He looked nervous in the first innings. Well, he was only there for 2 balls, but he looked pretty composed and comfortable second time around and batted well, I thought.
Yeah, I thought Will Smead's tempo was a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
I mean, I had a bit of a look at the previous 2 games and sort of watched him yesterday. I thought he looked like he'd set himself up to try and score off every ball, and if he couldn't, he would then defend it. Whereas I think in the couple of previous games, he was maybe looking to defend it and then trying to wait for a bad ball and then score. And then if you kind of do that, you're sometimes not quite there for the shot. But he looked a lot more fluent.
Yeah, he did. I think
a lot more confident.
He's another one who's earned himself a long spell in the county championship cricket. He's coming to terms with the demands. And again, I talked to him on Saturday after the rain, and he said he was really enjoying playing red ball cricket. And he also said, a bit like Tom Banton, that it's improving. The experience is improving his all-round game.
Absolutely,
he's a better cricketer for having gone back into red ball cricket and learning, relearning how to defend and all the rest of it. And I said on commentary, if he can just find the right tempo, then he's got all the ability that's needed. And I think in that second innings in particular, although he batted well in the first innings too, but in the second innings, I thought he had exactly the right tempo for the situation, to the extent that Yorkshire were giving him the single to get him off the strike. Which
that point you made up top, Gibbo, about us only scoring 3 runs for the last 3 wickets in the first innings. It was doubly frustrating that Smead was there, 36 not out, and they didn't even need to score runs quickly because he looked settled, and it must have been disappointing for him to have been left stranded with as few as 36 because as a specialist number 7, which you don't always get in team lineups, he had a lot more to offer, I think.
He did.
Yes, and he can certainly be a few overs of Will Smead, and you'll certainly add in more than 3 for your last couple of wickets. I mean, overall, then this was just a game. I think the run chases against Hampshire and this one the other day, I think probably if you get home in one of those, you're probably happy, and that's probably fair enough. But I think the run chase was too much because of what went on earlier in the game, and I think it is probably, as well as Yorkshire play, we were somewhat architects of our own downfall over the bank holiday weekend.
One thing, I don't know what Peter thinks about this, but several respected members came up to me at the end on Monday and said how upset they'd been by this sort of rhythmic clapping that Yorkshire were indulging in the field, which I wasn't particularly conscious of it, but from what I can gather from the people who, because we're cut off in our commentary box, that there was an element of trying to put the batsman off about it, a bit of gamesmanship. I,
Yeah.
I don't
So
know.
look, it
Yeah. Well,
it was very loud, and it was very effective. I would say. In fact, I was thinking about coming onto the podcast and clapping rhythmically, because that's definitely my lasting memory of that afternoon. It was a tactic. Now, whether it was to put our batters off or to G them up in the field, they were very animated and they were together
yeah.
and they were there for one another. I mean, and it wasn't just the rhythmic clapping. There was when they got Craig Overton out, you hear this on the highlights. There's this whooping and cheering and almost like that. I mean, not entirely appropriate, I would say. Now, whether that is exuberance because at that point they feel they're through and they're going to beat us, I think you could argue either way. If it was our team, we would say what a great illustration of togetherness and determination, and as opposed to how the game drifted in that really long session on the third day where we just couldn't take the wickets, and we had all the fielders round the boundary, and we were giving Richardson a single in order. There was a purposeness to what they were doing, but it was noticeable for sure, and I'd never seen it quite as loud and animated. And with the rhythmic clapping quite like that ever before. So definitely a tactic. What was the motivation? Who knows?
We did something similar against Warwickshire at home about 3 or 4 years ago. Jack Brooks was getting the crowd to do the old do, and that sort of increased intensity of clapping with the bowlers running in,
Yeah.
and that got us about 3 or 4 Warwickshire wickets. So I didn't have a mind so much to clapping, but I thought their excessive appealing
Yeah.
was over the line. I think they let themselves down a bit with that. There was some very, very aggressive appealing and over performative disappointment when certain decisions didn't go their way. But yeah, you're right. That piercing boo sort of sound. I think any team that's got a player that does that is probably one that you are going to have a hard time enjoying being in a dressing room with. That's my take on that. But yeah, and just to your point, Pete, I do like to be fair on these sorts of things. I don't think I've ever seen Somerset carry on. Even in the drama of that game against Surrey a couple of years ago, when it all of a sudden went from 0 to 100 in terms of intensity and our possibility of winning that game. I don't think once we were ever kind of went into that bracket of a the real kind of sort of appealing that you'd sort of see from some sort of Pakistani sides in the 90s, that sort of thing. That
Yeah.
real kind of,
It,
almost a cartwheel type appeal.
yeah, it's a good point about the appealing, actually. I think I feel it's a more legitimate point to make about the excessive appealing for ridiculous situations than probably the rhythmic clapping, which was odd, but was a kind of expression of collective determination that I think worked well for them.
I mean, my take on that is you can do whatever you like until the bowler starts running up. Within reason. Obviously, if you can't go up to the batter and start hurling 4-letter words and abuse in his face. But if you want to have a little couple of, if you're stood at mid wicket and you want to tell cover that you've seen a little flaw in his technique, you go ahead. All these sorts of things. That Sangakkara one, that video where he's telling Sean Pollock, all the pressure of the whole country's on you. Here, skipper, lots of pressure, 60 million fans all counting on you. That sort of thing's great, but yeah, just as long as you keep your mouth shut when the bowler's coming in, absolutely fine. But yeah, the appealing for me is what, thought they let themselves down a little bit there. Oh, do we have a few little, any little questions about the Surrey game before we?
Should we just do? What about 2 minutes on Floodlight Gate? That was
Oh yeah,
that was quite entertaining, wasn't it? So at the end of the day, on the third day, when we'd gone deep into, I mean, the previous day had gone on extremely late anyway, but then with two balls to go, 18:59, the floodlights went off, and uh, everyone uh, it looked completely confused about the entire situation. And then we were all told it's completely clear why this is. It's that we've only got a certain number of days when we can have the floodlights on beyond 18:59, and that's the moment that they have to stop. And we certainly had plenty of opportunities to get through our overs before it got to 18:59, and we wouldn't want to sacrifice a T20 game in order to keep the floodlights on for an
no,
extra couple of balls. Nevertheless, it was one of these kind of classic moments when it would have been nice to let. I mean, I don't know who did and didn't know, but certainly the supporters didn't know. It looked a bit of a surprise to the players, and the whole thing was a bit chaotic, really. So not our finest hour.
yeah, it was very odd. I was watching it on the stream. I was coming home from Salisbury races on Sunday night, and I was sort of like, well, what's going on here? Uh, yeah, I mean, you would have think, can they just put a little in brackets, 9 o'clock, or if it's a championship game, the end of the over in question.
Well, we should have bowled
Yeah.
our overs faster.
We should have done.
Admittedly, there
Well,
were
yeah.
all the ball changes that slowed things down, but I've noticed Somerset's over rate has slowed this season. You know, in previous recent seasons, they've been up around the 16 overs an hour mark, but even without Jack Leach bowling over after over after over, but it's been noticeable in all the first four games that the over rate has dropped. I don't know whether that's a matter of deliberate policy or not, but it's a shame. It's nice to see cricketers getting through their overs in good time.
Yeah, definitely. Right, let's do a couple of listeners' questions then before we put our selectorial hats on for Sophia Gardens on Friday. Let's find. Well, Dan Parsons already asked about our thoughts on Craig batting above Lewis. Rob Reed, question for Peter. Do we think we'll ever see a state school homegrown batter make their Somerset debut?
Well, as a state school educated person myself, I very much hope so. I mean, Rob's done some really interesting research in this space about the quality and the ceilings of players who come into the game from state schools relative to those who don't. And I think his argument, which I appreciate, is that if we could create the conditions in which more people from state schools were able to join the pathways, not just at very early ages, but later through the age groups as well, then we would be fishing in an even stronger pool than we're fishing in as a club at the moment. And I think that's a really fair point to make. And the club is working on county and academy pathways and the routes into those. It's a slow process. It would be nice to think it was going faster because, as I say, temperamentally, I am with him that there's a lot of talent out there. We're not helped by the invisibility of cricket and the lack of facilities for so many state school pupils compared with how things were when we were growing up, and cricket was more of an option which more kids were naturally wanting to play and had more opportunities to play. But that doesn't detract from, I think, his fundamental argument that if we could connect more players, more people for longer from a wider pool of talent, then we may find that there are people in our region that have got a ceiling even beyond those that we're bringing through at the moment. So that's how I'd answer that one. So yes, I hope so.
Isn't it true, though, that the public schools snap up from the state system, any really promising cricketers. They're given bursaries at Millfield or Kings or Taunton or Queens. I mean, someone like Casey Aldridge, for example, he doesn't come from a highly privileged background. He wouldn't have gone for Millfield if he hadn't been an outstandingly good cricketer. So I think that clearly cricket in the state system is almost non-existent, which means that the clubs have got to step up. But the clubs are going to get a whole heap of money out of the sale of the 100, 30, 40 million, I can't remember how much it is now, with precisely that in mind. But I think, the clubs will develop young cricketers, but then if they're really good, they'll probably end up back at Kings and Millfield and Queens and Taunton, because Kings and Millfield and co, they want the best cricketers in their ranks. And so I'm not sure that there'll be too many who come straight from a state school into the first team. They're much more likely to come from state school, public school, first team, via the pathway.
I think as well that if you look at the training that young batters can go through in terms of hours and hours with a coach on a sidearm or a bowling machine, if you're a boarder at a public school, you could just nip down with the head of cricket for an hour every evening, and you practice in top class facilities with top class coaching. It is such a massive advantage that you could never really do that at a state school, or indeed at a club. It's going to be difficult to find a coach to do it, unless you happen to have a parent who's a qualified and dedicated coach to help you along that journey. And as you say, Gibbo, if you're offered a scholarship to one of the top public schools in the region, if it's feasible, you are going to take it. So it's
but
I know Rob is really passionate about this kind of thing, but it almost seems like the question is kind of not cutting off your nose to spite your face, but I'm kind of looking for a phrase. It's almost
think
that we. Sorry, Pete, you go on.
I think Rob is right to challenge us on this, because we are supremely fortunate and well served by especially Millfield and Kings, but also the other independent schools, and that is a brilliant asset, and it's increasingly porous to state school pupils when you think about scholarships and when you look at the work that's being done on the pathways. But if we can find a way, and it's way beyond our own control, because as I say, these huge other factors about accessibility to facilities, the cost of kit, the visibility of the game of cricket on terrestrial TV, etc., etc. But if we can, and we should, as a game nationally, not just in Somerset, harness that, then there is the potential to enrich even further the potential talent pool which we could draw on in the West Country. And it's a harder point to make in our bit of the country because we have got such a strong pathway coming through. So his kind of constant posing of the question, I think, is a good and reasonable challenge.
It's not a new thing, though. I mean, my primary school, we didn't play cricket up to the age of 11 at Mallerton Vale Primary School in Plymouth. And if I'd gone on to comprehensive or a grammar school, I doubt very much if I'd have played cricket there either.
We didn't play in my primary school either in sort of the 80s and 90s when I went to school at Torquay. We had an artificial pitch, and that was about it. I think we didn't have any sort of artificial net, so that's Torquay Grammar, so which has produced some pretty good cricketers over the years.
Yeah.
But even our facilities were kind of nothing compared to some of the public schools. So it's yes, it is something that the sort of the clubs need to pick up, or are picking up. But like I say, it's a very difficult problem to solve. And I've sort of often said that when we talking about reducing counties, we should be aiming for more professional cricket clubs. Even if they are, as many professional as we can. It might be a a pipe dream. But if you haven't got that goal of creating more professional cricketers in the country, then you're never going to achieve it anyway. So
No,
Well,
there's some very good role models though in terms of clubs. I mean, Pete Trico's club, Burbage and Eastern Royal, they're doing fantastic things there. They've got three really top class club sides that they can produce. They've got two pitches, and this is just a couple of villages in Wiltshire. So if the will is there, the way can be found.
yeah,
and the club's declared
certainly.
strategy is to inspire the Southwest through cricket. So it's bigger. I mean, it is also to win the county championship, but that's not the top line of the club's strategy. Is beyond that, and it is
Inspiring
about
Southwest
engaging and
through
involving
cricket
more
by
people.
winning the county championship. There we go.
Well, that would help, wouldn't it?
That'd be good. Yeah, I mean, I know from my experience as well, the amount of clubs in Devon that have got third and fourth 11s now compared to when I was sort of in my late teens and early 20s is exponential now. There have been a few clubs that have folded, which has sort of mitigated that as well. But overall, I think participation numbers are really strong in recreational cricket in the Southwest at the moment. So long may that continue.
Here.
Andy Cleve asks, we discussed this last week, the rationale when you cannot for the life of you want to bowl at a number 9 and you're desperate to bowl at a number 10. Jai Richardson and Jack White, he cites as the example.
I absolutely agree with Andy Cleve about it. It makes no sense.
Too.
You're just surrendering the initiative, giving them easy runs, and it's I don't understand it.
Yeah, Harry Hayden talks about the assertive way we approached chase at Hampshire, with the timid and nervous way we did so yesterday. I think we were bowled well at for the first hour or so. But we could have maybe, mind you, haven't said that if we lost 2 early wickets playing silly shots. I don't know.
It was a bit timid.
The last thing I want people to think is that we are being overcritical of Josh Thomas and Archie Vaughan, because they're two marvellously talented young lads learning their trade, and I think to kind of sort of throw darts at them for the way they started, I think that not doing that at any stretch of the imagination at all. Alex Simpson asks, once everyone's back fit, is Vaughan's long-term future as a middle order spinner rather than an opener?
No.
As much as we like homegrown players, do we need to break the bank for an opener?
I don't know why they didn't get Matt Renshaw back.
Well, there is a vacant overseas spot at the moment, and we are a little bit light on batting. So if we were able to get Renshaw in for, a short-term deal for maybe these next, well, it would be a bit late for the
2 games, wouldn't it? Now,
and then you've got the 2 games in the blast. So the season's quite disjointed at the minute, and then you think by the time sort of late August and September comes around, we're probably going to have everybody fit again. So the timing's not quite there for that, unfortunately. Bob Depledge asks, constant chat about the pitch flattening out as the game went on. Surely I wasn't the only one concerned about the chase when early on day 3 Archie got a couple to rag. Thought Bess would play a role but hadn't considered route. Yeah, it almost seemed like a foregone conclusion, didn't it, among everybody, that the pitch was going to be an absolute road to bat on day 4, and we were going to stroll to victory on a beautiful road of a surface, and it never quite came to pass.
I heard Joe Root being interviewed, and he said the pitch wasn't doing that much. It was just the odd ball turning. It wasn't ragging. It was just the odd ball was turning.
It was doing a darn sight more than the one against Worcester. We played on against Worcester, though.
But it's the most intriguing aspect of the game that if their spinners could take whatever it was, 8 wickets on the final day, then we would hope and expect that Jack Leach plus AN other ought to be able to do that in future games. So if the grounds folk know what it is they did this time that they didn't do last time, then good news potentially.
If we'd batted first, we'd probably have been bowled out for 150.
So maybe so. One thing we haven't talked about is what's going on with Craig Overton's catching. He's gone from being one of the safest pair of hands in the slips in the history of the club to, well, not.
He'll get it back again.
He will. I know he will. I would just sort of look at him. I mean, I was kind of looking around the ground.
You've played enough cricket, Sheps, to know that if you drop one, it increases significantly the chances you're going to drop the next one because
that's
you're confident.
True. Well, not that I ever dropped any Gibbo in my career at all.
That was another factor, though, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, I made the point about the extras. Somerset gave Yorkshire 57 extras. They gave us 14, and we dropped catches. And Lewis Gregory bowled someone off a no ball, and they didn't drop anything. I can recall.
Bairstow dropped Josh Thomas.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I didn't realise it at the time, but it was.
The one that went through slips.
Yeah, no, not that one. It was one. I think it was an inside edge, and it went through very low, and he couldn't quite hold on.
He's I was sort of looking around the ground yesterday. I was trying to think, has something changed with the sort of the sighting or anything like that? Because it's not just Craig that sort of put a couple down in the slips, but I don't know. It just seems to.
Tom Abell dropped one as well.
Yeah, it's
pretty straightforward in the first slip.
And it seems to be catching.
Yeah,
but anyway, I'm sure Tweds will have them looking at what they've done. I couldn't see them doing anything wrong. They've standed like they normally do. They don't seem to be staggered any different. They're not. Standing with their hands on their knees like Beefy used to. Everything seems the same. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's a new batch of balls or something. Who knows? Right, Glamorgan then, who turned over Leicestershire in the battle of the promoted sides over the weekend. Eddie Byram, Ned Leonard, Sean Dixon et al. Away, along with Kieran Carlson, who blasted a double hundred as well. Not much we can do with the batting. We're losing Thomas Rue, and nobody else is really available apart from. I mean, you could bring Finn Hill in if you wanted to, but doesn't really seem to be a space for him in that middle order. So you're probably looking at the same side with Jack Leach coming in for Thomas Rue, I guess.
You could. I mean, you could bring Finn Hill in for Tom Lammonby, and make and push James Rue up to 3. I'd still like to see Lewis Gregory opening with Josh Thomas, but I think go on, Ian.
I was going to say, Jason Kerr told you that Jake Ball was going to play. I think, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he did tell me that. Yeah. I just hope to God it's not Craig Overton who's going to be rotated out.
We know what our record is like without Craig.
Yeah.
Well, Miggy Pretorius missed Southampton a couple of weeks ago, didn't he? So, well, you would have thought after one game. Would you rotate after one game? You wouldn't, would you?
Well, I would, but I'm not sure. Not sure Jason Kerr will.
I wouldn't rotate Craig after one game. He said himself he doesn't want to be rotated. He said, if I'm fit, I want to play. And considering they just had 10 days off, you would have thought that they could be, good to go for.
I presume that Jake Ball's going to come in for Alfie Ogborn, who didn't bowl particularly well. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, we'll potentially go for that.
Although it wouldn't break my heart if he came in for Miguel Pretorius, who I was singularly unimpressed with.
Yes, he does have
especially with the bat. But
he had a Surrey-esque rush of blood to the head. For those of you just trying to wipe his atrocious shot that he played to get off camera field. When we were trying to block it out for the draw at the Oval a couple of years ago.
I've never seen Richard Latham so furious as he was.
Yes, it was a bit.
At the end
like
on
that.
Monday after the
rain was
way
coming as well, which I'm sure they would have had a look at on the.
It was frustrating.
Anywho's.
Yeah.
Well, it was living bonkers.
I'm still going to talk because I know this is going to
I
upload.
just do not know what can possibly have been going through his head.
Silly buggers again. What's going on here?
Oh, we've lost him completely.
Yeah, I mean that is a very strong contender for brain fade of the
What's going on here? My internet's working.
It was a terrible shot.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, what is going on?
I mean, and you know, because he's not a bad player. He averages about 27 in first class cricket. But
Oh, this is going to be fun to edit all this
but
out.
the injuries are a big factor,
Come
aren't
on.
they, Peter? It's I mean, to lose Kohler Cadmore and
Yeah.
Goldsworthy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Banton being, you know, well,
Hello.
A at the IPL and then B injured. It's taking a big chunk out of the batting.
Yeah, and it does mean we kind of have to play Lammonby, don't we? Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Which we might not have done otherwise. Yeah.
But I don't know. He must have picked up the injury during the season, because I spoke to him on the media day and had a chat with him, and he was absolutely fit and raring to go. So, you know, he'd had a lovely time in Australia. He was really looking forward to
Hello.
it. I said,
Hello.
You fit enough to bowl? I said, oh yeah, I'm fit enough. I'm looking forward to bowling. And of course, he did bowl a bit as well, didn't he? Down at the Utilita Bowl, and bowled quite nicely. Got a couple of
Yeah.
Oh no, it was at Chelmsford when he got 2 wickets in the over.
There was a catch, wasn't there, that he didn't quite take, and he went off. Was that in the first game? Was that in the Notts game? And,
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah,
and so maybe there's something in one of his hands that. Sheps has just sent me a message saying he's back on. He's going to be back on shortly.
Good.
But you better get on with it. Oh, here we
Right,
are.
I've no idea what happened there, but I am back. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I don't know. Everything else is working, but the software that we use to record the podcast, it seemed to want to kick me out for about 5 minutes. Right, the bells are tolling. That is us done for the week. Best of luck to Lewis Gregory and the boys over the Severn Bridge at Spy Gardens this week as they take on Glamorgan in the County Championship. And thanks for listening. We'll catch up with you next time.
Bye then.
Bye.
Cheers.